Bishop Joseph Strickland is listing the reasons he was given for his removal while debunking another reason floating around social media. Today, Church Militant's Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomez, is away, which is fine because we can let Bishop Joseph Strickland do most of the talking. Bishop Strickland, as you know, was recently removed as head of the Diocese of Tyler, Texas. But 2 days before being fired, he was in D.C. talking with the papal nuncio, Cardinal Christophe Pierre. And in his D.C. office with Pierre, he was discussing the reasons for his removal. One alleged reason for that removal that's been making the rounds of social media is Strickland's supposed mismanagement of his diocese in Tyler. But speaking on World Over a few days ago, Strickland debunks that idea entirely, saying Cardinal Pierre just didn't mention it.
Let me say, because there's a lot out there because of some comments even from a priest in the diocese, administrative concerns. He didn't mention a single administrative concern.
But there were several reasons listed. One was how Strickland was not on the same page with his fellow bishops in the Texas Conference of Catholic Bishops. Let's take a listen to that.
He did mention a lack of fraternity with my brother bishops, which I think is basically comes down to a lack of, I'm speaking up and they're not, so that has been, that's been a bit uncomfortable.
Now, one of those uncomfortable issues was where Bishop Strickland was at odds a few years ago over the Texas Advanced Directives Act, where patients were supposedly going to be giving doctors authority to decide their end-of-life issues, when to stop treating them and just let them die. Strickland was against that, while bishops like Michael Olson, Fort Worth, were testifying on Capitol Hill on behalf of that act. Another point was his support. Strickland goes back to his meeting with Christophe Pierre on Thursday of a couple days before being removed from Tyler. And he said that at that meeting, another reason given to him was that he did not, his support of the traditional Latin Mass, but specifically not implementing restrictions on the Mass to it as called for a couple years back by Pope Francis motu proprio, Traditionis Custodes.
That was one thing. The fact that I didn't implement Traditionis Custodes, I basically didn't not implement, I just didn't respond. We have a few Latin Masses, and as I said, I felt like I couldn't deprive that portion of the flock of the nourishment they were receiving. Great young families, packed to the gills, these churches where, we have one FSSP church, so that's accurate. I didn't implement that. I think other bishops have not responded to that as maybe the Vatican wishes.
Another point that Strickland mentioned was his use of social media. Let's hear him on that one.
Certainly, my internet media, the social media presence, that is, I'd already been told to cool it on that. But I feel it's important. I'm a successor of the apostles, and that's a huge responsibility. And I feel the responsibility of speaking the truth.
You think it's just the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of social media posts. He's trying to convey the truth of the faith in the real time of how things are rolling out. One particular post back in May, the way it's worded, he talks about the Pope's program of undermining the deposit of faith, and that's a hot spot. Hopefully similar posts won't, on that particular phraseology won't be coming from Strickland. But Strickland was heavily critical of the Synod and synodality all the way up through it, up until October. And that specific thing was listed as a reason by Cardinal Pierre.
That's one of the things that was listed. I wasn't supportive of the Synod, and, I stand by that. As I said in one of the tweets, I said, why are we discussing things that shouldn't be up for discussion? It's settled truth that God has revealed to us.
What also came out of this interview on World Over was the fact that Strickland said this has been in the works for quite a while. Strickland here mentions a meeting that we've covered before on Rome Dispatch with Pierre from 3 years ago, where Christophe Pierre, as Archbishop then, still nuncio, papal nuncio of the United States, wanted Strickland to stop emphasizing the deposit of faith so much.
They were telling me 2 years ago, quit emphasizing this so much and get with the program. His Eminence basically said, it was sort of you didn't get the warning 2 years ago, Pope Francis has made his decision. You need to be relieved of your work as Bishop of Tyler.
You notice how Bishop Strickland used the word they. Incidentally, that meeting that Strickland was talking about there 3 years back with Pierre wasn't just with Pierre. It happened in a supply closet on the second floor of the Marriott during a break in the USCCB meeting. And Cardinal DiNardo, who was actually a former president of the USCCB and also with Strickland in Texas as part of the Conference of Bishops, was also present at that meeting, according to sources close to the story. Now, we also know that Strickland is not S.T.B. He's actually going to be here talking about the authority of the Pope, which is actually something that he stands by. So let's take a listen to that.
The Holy Father, as Supreme Pontiff, has the authority, if he chooses, to remove me from that office. And he did choose to do so. I respect that. And, you know, I've gotten advice, oh, you need to stay where you are, you need to fight this. I'm not going to do that.
So we know Bishop Strickland's not S.T.B. He's not Sedevacantez. He believes the Pope is really the Pope. He said that on many, many times, affirming it here again. The Pope has the authority to remove him, and he's not going to be fighting that. He's not going to be somehow resisting authority and being schism. So what's the real issue then? What Strickland seemed to say this is all about? It's the deposit of faith, according to what he's about to tell us, and which all too many bishops, he believes, seem to either disbelieve or simply discount.
There are bishops that are closely connected, woven into the McCarrick story, and there's been no action against them. As I said 5 years ago, do we believe what our Catholic faith teaches or not? I said that on the floor of the bishops' meeting 5 years ago. Sadly, the answer that I seem to be getting, not directly, but by circumstance, by who people are associating with, by what's going on with this synod, the answer seems to be no.
So that's quite an admission there, where in him rubbing shoulders with fellow bishops, he was asking them on the floor 5 years ago why Father James Martin gets to speak in so many dioceses about homosexuality. How did McCarrick rise to power? That has to do with homosexuality. Do we believe the Church is teaching on at least one thing here about homosexuality? And at the Synod, why are we discussing all these things that are supposedly settled doctrine if we believe in the deposit of faith? So he's not calling into question Holy Mother Church or even Pope Francis, but all the bishops out there and this whole process going along. What's going on here? And he seems to think that the deposit of faith is not being it's being discounted or disbelieved, and that's a problem. But as for the secret to Strickland's strength, and this is something we can all draw upon, and his boldness in speaking up for it, that comes from Eucharistic adoration. Here's how he puts it.
I spend a lot of time in prayer. That's because I need to. I need to grow closer to the Lord, and I feel that closeness.
As do we all. Hats off to Raymond and the crew at World Over for giving Bishop Strickland a chance to say all this, and it's been very enlightening. And every time you hear Strickland speak, you just can't help but become more in love with the Catholic Church founded by Christ. Hats off to Bishop Strickland. Please pray that he soon be reinstated. God bless you. Thanks again for watching today's episode of Rome Dispatch. This show is brought to you by donors like Real Estate for Life. If you're looking to buy or sell a home and want to support our mission, visit realestateforlife.org. Again, that's realestateforlife.org. Be sure to tell them Church Militant sent you. God bless.